Hi, my name is John Arneson, and this talk is about giving you a better understanding of marketing. You won't be a marketer at the end of the session, but you will know the most important questions to ask and to know what to get good answers for. I'll be sharing a high-level overview of the key components of marketing in this presentation, and I urge you to read more about marketing after this presentation, because in fact the more you read, the better you'll understand marketing, and the better you understand marketing, the better you'll be able to use marketing to make your business successful. Remember, there is no magic in marketing. Marketing is actually about hard work applying sound marketing theory and principles. And so, yes, good marketing can produce good results. But the exciting thing about marketing is when there is great marketing, something special happens and you get outstanding business results coming from a great marketing. When we talk about marketing, you've got to give it the context. So in this slide, you'll see I've got a picture of the customer, and the customer's wearing a crown, and so the customer's king. And the importance of this is that in every organization, you've got somebody who looks after the money, someone looks after IT, someone looks after the staff, someone looks after operations. You should always have someone that focuses on the customer. And effectively, that's the marketing person's job. The marketing person, or the chief marketing officer, that's what they now call marketing people, marketing staff that operate at boardroom level, the chief marketing officer. They drive customer centricity for the business. In other words, they ensure, as you see on the slide there, that the business focuses on the customer. It's important that the marketing officer or the chief marketing officer is part of the management team, because ultimately there is no business without a customer. And that is why we have in the slide, and that's why it is said that the customer is king, or in fact a queen, depending on perspective. Marketing is about ensuring competitive advantage. And yes, when you're down and you're looking at sales of bread or cell phones or motor cars, it would be market share in that segment. But ultimately, a marketing effort, or the marketer, must ensure three market shares. First one is share of heart, as per the picture. You'll see this is where you don't get customers just to buy your product because they need to buy it, but in fact you want customers to love your product, because when this happens, something really special happens, and the customer becomes in fact the marketer for the organization. The middle one is about share of mind. This is where in all the media clutter, you want your brand or your product or your service to stand out. And so it's not only getting people to be passionate about your product, but they must have it top of mind. First thing when asked about your product or service, your brand must come to mind. It's important that marketers, or the marketing effort, continuously builds the brand awareness in the market that it is serving, so that you're continuously differentiated against your competitors. The third one is probably the most well known. It's about market share. It's how much money people spend on your product as opposed to how much they spend on the competitors' products. Clearly, this is one of the numbers that shareholders, directors, and executives of organizations watch like a hawk. And so the marketer needs to be able to speak about this, as well as share of mind and share of heart, when representing the marketing effort at the boardroom table. Marketing is a living process. So marketing doesn't happen at the beginning of the year and then is a bit of a review at the end of the year. Marketing is an ongoing living process. It does start with a great strategy, and so at some point in the planning cycle, or the business cycle, there must be time set aside to develop the strategy, which then is converted into a series of marketing actions or marketing interventions, which are measured and, where needed, revised and enhanced. So the point of this is that first thing is it needs good strategy. Second thing is marketing isn't just about talk, it's a whole lot of things that are done. And the third thing in the slide is everything that is done is measurable. Okay, let me state that marketing is measurable. No marketing investment should be made without agreed return on marketing investment upfront. Return on marketing investment might not be financial, but it must be measurable. That's why the little tape measures are there. There's numbers attached. So, for example, a 10% increase in brand awareness is measurable and a valued result. And that's the kind of commitment marketers or the marketing effort needs to make to the organization in terms of the money that's spent on marketing. And when this is understood by the management team or at the boardroom table, that yes, we need money for marketing, but here are the hard measurable results that will come as a result of the marketing effort, marketing starts to become more and more exciting and more the focus of discussions at the boardroom table. The little icon, or the icon at the bottom, which says close the loop, is really important to take note of, because in fact marketing is not a thing that you plan and you roll it out and it all just ticks over nicely. In the marketplace, competitors are coming at the same clients all the time, and so marketers have to be adaptable and flexible. And so while you would have a great strategy, a great set of interventions, good measures in place, you need to monitor that constantly and as appropriate change the strategy, change the interventions to ensure that your business and your products and services are the ones that your customers want and desire. Marketing has 4 major components to it, or pillars. And I in fact quite like this slide because they're really strong, sturdy pillars. And each pillar stands on its own, but together they can really hold up a great, hold the roof together, one would say, the roof of the business. So the pillars are marketing strategy, marketing research, marketing communication, and marketing engagement. I'll talk about them in the next couple of slides, but at this point I just want every pillar is important. And let's go to the first one now and talk about marketing strategy. So in this slide, before we get on to the 4 Ps, which you can see in the middle of the slide there, are the 4 Ps. They were introduced by Jerome McCarthy in the 1960s already, and they really have stood the test of time and provide a very good framework for thinking through marketing activities or marketing interventions. But before the marketer gets there, the 2 questions that the marketer must present to the boardroom table and get good answers for are: what business are we in, and who are our preferred customers? This sets the direction. Theodore Levitt in 1960 wrote the world famous article now, Marketing Myopia, and it challenged business leaders across the world at the time to think about what business were they in. And so as a result of that, and a result of the thinking that came from that quite short article, cool drinks became happiness. Coca-Cola suddenly sold happiness, and transport becomes joy. BMW is not about a motor car anymore. It's about sheer driving pleasure or joy. So those are the questions that the marketer must bring to the table and get those questions about the business. What business are we in? Answered. Similarly, the second question is, who are our preferred customers? If you're going to ensure that your customers are the kings and queens of the business, you need to actually have decided which customers you want and who you want them to be. So 2 key questions answered up front. Once those are in place, you start talking about the 4 Ps. First P is about product. It's quite interesting as marketing has evolved. Services are part of product now, and more recently experiences are also types or parts of the product P. The second P is about pricing. Pricing in itself is a long conversation, and discounting and incentivizing are all part of the pricing conversation that the marketing or the marketer must lead and get decisions from the boardroom. The third P is about promotion, communication, advertising, branding, packaging. There's a lot of elements in the promotion P that need to be dealt with and considered by the marketing effort. It's important to make sure that in this particular place, the least amount of money is spent for the maximum return. It's important to not see marketing as an expensive part of the business. It must be, as I said earlier, measurable, and in fact, marketers should spend the least amount of money to get a high return for the business. The last P is place. In the slide, you'll see it's about channels, it's about partners, it's about the value chain. And in fact, place has become the point of engagement, and we'll talk about that a bit more in a couple of slides to come. But it really has become an interesting part of the marketing mix as the evolution, or we've moved into the digital era. Okay, the second pillar in the marketing process is market research. In market research, there are two areas that the marketer must really be an expert on and ensure that the relevant research is done. The first is the customer, understanding everything about the customer, and the second one is on the competition or the competitors. When we get into research, the marketer needs to understand that there is qualitative and quantitative research. Both are important, and both should be considered when undertaking research about both customers or the competitor. Another important thing about market research is it doesn't all have to be formal and very expensive. A lot of what is called informal research can be done: desktop research, searching the internet, finding out reading the newspapers, reading magazines, finding out what your competitors are doing. So research is not necessarily formal and expensive. It's informal and can be done in many, many creative ways. The third thing about research is that there are two really important perspectives at which you look at the customer. The one is a demographic perspective, and the other one would be the psychographic perspective. When we're talking about demographics, we're talking about the what's. It's where they live, where they work, what they earn, what they own, how old are they, etc. It's all those kind of questions, and they're very, very important questions. But equally important is the psychographic information. This is questions about how the customer thinks. What are the customer's habits? What are their attitudes? What are their values and beliefs? So important about this part of this slide is that the smart marketer or the top marketer has her or his finger on both perspectives, both demographic and psychographic perspectives of the customer. And they're able, therefore, to use this information to develop totally unique and highly profitable marketing strategies and actions to gain market share. The third pillar is marketing communication. In this slide, you'll see we talk about old media and then new media. If marketing is about ensuring customer centricity, then being able to communicate with the customer effectively and efficiently is vitally important. So marketing communication is a critical part of the four pillars of the marketing effort. What we are living in right now is a rapidly changing world, particularly with regard to the media. And so what I've done in this slide is I've differentiated between old media, not that old, but old media, and new media, which is the digital era. So old media is about radio, it's about magazine adverts, it's about direct mail, sending stuff to customers through the post. It's getting stuff through PR in the newspapers. The one thing about the old media that differentiates it from the new media is it's certainly one way. A billboard up in a street, on a highway, it sends a message. There is no feedback, immediate feedback from the customer. The new media, which has been given life through the internet and is really fairly new in that regard, where we use email, we'll use websites, we'll use social media, there's YouTube now, and there are things that we don't even know about that are coming in the new media as a result of the digital revolution, is two-way. So old days, you put an advert out and you wouldn't get a response straight away. Yes, you would hopefully get a response in due course, but you couldn't link the communication. In the new media, you put something up, immediately the customers can respond, and they can respond positively or negatively. And so it's important to be aware that the new media has got dangers that we as marketers don't really know that well yet, and so we need to be careful when venturing into the new media space. The important thing about the communication mix is both old media and new media must be considered when considering the communication mix. It's not about the one is better than the other. It's what is the most appropriate to use for the customer. So if your customers or the target market that you're trying to focus doesn't have access to digital media, it would be silly to try to introduce a digital campaign. Then you would possibly use newspapers or magazines or whatever media they consumed. It's important also to remember that social media, there are mechanisms to monitor and be able to monitor social media on a sort of a second by second basis. So the nice thing about new media versus old media is it's much more measurable. And I go back to the slide a couple of slides ago where I said everything in marketing is now measurable. Certainly the new media is highly measurable on the number of clicks, the number of visitors, the number of responses that one can get from a campaign in the new media space. The fourth pillar is the marketing engagement space. This is where customers interact and ultimately exchange money for a product or service or experience. In the slide here, you'll see I have a till. It's a fairly modern till, but it represents the old way of a customer going to a point of service, selecting a good, and then handing money over, and there is a exchange at that point of service. What I do like about this slide is the little chicken that's popped out of the egg and says, oh wow, paradigm shift. Because in fact, with the advent of the internet, the necessity for the customer to go to a shop or a point of sale and select and buy and exchange and have an engagement is no longer necessary. Probably the most a significant example here is 20-30 years ago, travel agencies were all over the place, and you always went to your travel agent to buy an airplane ticket or book a hotel or whatever. Nowadays, you go to the internet and you buy everything through the internet, and you hardly ever deal with a travel agent. So it's just an example of how this engagement space has changed fundamentally. The point about the point of engagement or the moment of engagement is that's the point where the customer is the most ready for an upsell or cross-sell opportunity. It's where the customer is most vulnerable to being either impressed with great customer service or coming away being dissatisfied. And so this is why it's a pillar that stands on its own. This pillar is so important because if you get the engagement experience to be a great experience, you will buy the loyalty of your customer, and you will ensure repeat business from that customer. In the old days, you would be training up your frontline staff to do that for you as they hand over, and the appreciation and everything goes with the exchange. Now it has to be done, and not has to, but it's done through the internet as well. And so that experience on the internet must be smooth, must be efficient, must be rewarding. And when the product is duly delivered, that part of the value chain process must achieve that that same sense of pleasure that the customer seeks when buying a product, and therefore allowing for the upsell, the cross-sell, the repeat sell opportunities to occur. In addition to the 4 pillars, which we've now spoken about, there are a couple of other things that I just want to mention about marketing. In recent years, brand has become absolutely powerful. The media has given brands personalities. And so it's important that you recognize the power of brand and take advantage of the power of having a powerful brand. Organizations, like some of these brands shown on these slides here, many of these organizations have got experts to value the brand, give a monetary value to the brand, and have included that monetary value on the audited financial statements of that company. That's how powerful and how important brands have become through the marketing efforts in recent years. And as a result of this, brands take on a personality, and they make a promise, and people start to trust the brand. And in fact, if your brand starts to let the community down or the customer down, there's a real problem that goes with that. In the mid-90s, Eskom was a highly recognized, respected and appreciated brand. Right now, Eskom is struggling with its brand perception because it's just not able to deliver the service that is associated with the traditional product or promise that the Eskom brand delivered to the community at large. The other thing about brands is they can become synonymous with a product. And so, for example, people now use the word Hoover, and they might not even own a Hoover vacuum cleaner, but they're talking about a product that has become something that everybody just knows and has. When the marketer puts the marketing plan together, it is really important to remember that this plan should not be developed in isolation. In developing the marketing plan, the first elements to take cognizance of are the so-called pest factors, P-E-S-T. So the first one in that is the politicals, what's going on politically in the marketplace or in the region that your products and services are being delivered in. You've got to understand that, because if you understand that, you'll be able to predict what's going to happen more effectively to the marketplace, and therefore to be able the possibility of selling your product in that marketplace. The economic indicators, the economic space that you're operating in needs to be taken into cognizance. Is there inflation? Is there deflation? Is the economy growing? Those are all important things to know and to understand. Then, in terms of society, the picture there reflects the environmental aspect of society. There are other parts of society as well. Knowing the society that you're working in or wanting to serve your market in, important to know. And then technology. What is happening in technology? Technology is driving change at an incredibly rapid pace, and it's important to have considered the technological developments. And so once you've done that analysis, which is your pest analysis, the marketer comes closer to the business and starts to look at the SWOT analysis. And that really looks at the strengths of the business, the weaknesses in the business, the opportunities facing the business, and the threats or the challenges facing the business. Given that, now the marketer has looked at the environment, the greater environment. It's looked at the business in context. It's taken into consideration the business plan, Then the marketer starts to put together the marketing plan. And the reason for this contextualization of the marketing plan is ultimately the marketing plan sets the trajectory for the business. The marketing plan will project or predict what the market share will be in next year and 5 years and possibly 10 years hence. The marketing plan will talk to which customers we want to retain. It will talk to which customers the competitors might have we want to acquire. And in fact, the marketing plan must and should talk to what new markets or what new opportunities the business wants to acquire. Now the marketing plan starts to take context, and the business is led into the future by the marketing plan. And so important that this plan is compiled by informed staff and is bought into by not only the marketing team but the entire business, because once you have that, you have the organization set to serve the customers that you've chosen and to really become successful in the marketplace. It is important to know that as marketing has grown, marketers have specialized, and marketing is becoming truly a profession in its own right. Here on this slide, you'll see that there's a fairly short list. There are many more, but a short list of the marketing specializations that have evolved over the last 20 years, particularly. And so if you are in the property business, for example, you would not go to get somebody that's a trade marketer or a utility marketer to come and help with you. You would get somebody that is a property marketer that specializes in property marketing. And so it's important to make sure that when thinking about marketing or when getting advice about marketing, that the marketer that you consult with has the right skills, has the right qualifications. You should check that, because in fact this profession has grown now that a marketer should have an appropriately recognized marketing qualification and has the professional standing that is required of him or her, because you are trusting this marketing person to advise you on how to serve the customer and ultimately how to grow and shape the business. And you really need to make sure that this person has the right skills, the right qualifications, and the right professional standing. Marketers must understand, or the marketing effort has to embrace numbers. I've touched on this a few times. I want to emphasize it again. So there is a huge amount of data available now, more than ever before. The internet, the digital revolution has provided us with data as marketers, and we're able to analyze and break down and measure. So therefore, the marketer must be able to motivate with numbers more than ever before. How many and how much must be part of your marketer or your marketing language. It's no longer it's grow by how many, how much. In addition, the marketer must be able to make comparisons, to be able to benchmark against similar initiatives. So not only will you bring numbers, you'll be able to give context to numbers. Your marketer must be able to do that, or your marketing study. And then thirdly, the marketer should embrace what is the real important conversation at the boardrooms throughout the world. How do we reduce costs? How do we grow revenue? Marketers should not always be asking for more money. They should be coming to the boardroom table with plans to spend less, to save money, and in fact achieve more. Once these elements are brought to the boardroom table, marketing really will shift from something that is seen as some PR advertising campaign to part of the strategic mix of the business. So try to give you a broad understanding of marketing quite quickly. And what I want to leave you with now before we close are 13 important marketing questions that you should have great answers for. So the first question is, has the relevant market research been undertaken, and does it support the marketing program? So Where's the research? Where is the analysis? Ask the question of your marketer, or ask the question of yourself if you are the marketer. You can't just use your gut feel. Next question, has market segmentation and positioning been carefully thought through, and does it make sense? So what are your customers? Why? And why are you selecting them? You need to have thought that through, and everybody needs to have bought into that idea. Third question is, what are the competitor challenges that can be expected? So you need to know what's going to happen when you get into the boxing ring. The fourth question is, does your product stand out? As we see with the apples here, the red one stands out. Does yours stand out? Is it the one that is in the middle and needs to be selected by your customer? And the last question in this slide is, are the underlying branding principles clear and logical, and does the marketing program enhance the corporate brand? It's really important. If your brand stands for something, it is a brand promise, it must be that your marketing campaign talks to the brand promise. Another set of questions: has due consideration been given to the not so exciting things like packaging and pricing and distribution channels? So it goes back to the 4 pillars. Yes, lots of effort and excitement because it's fun to put an advertising campaign together, but all the other elements of the marketing mix have to have been given due consideration so that you have a holistic marketing approach. Have you got the right expert on board is important. Third question there, is your sales team aware of the marketing effort, and are they excited, and have they bought in, and is the value chain aligned from the marketing effort through to the sales effort, and in fact back into the production? And then lastly on this slide, have you taken advantage of PR? PR is actually where you get publicity in the media at no cost. You get journalists to write about you or your organization or your product. And this is a field, it's a specialization. I didn't even mention in the previous slide. It's a specialization in its own right, and it's something that if used well can be very, very valuable and very low cost to an organization. The last 4 questions: is your advertising campaign aligned with the marketing campaign? That's quite an interesting question. You would say, but that's so obvious, it should be. Sometimes it doesn't. You need to just check that everything's in alignment. The marketing effort is about aligning the process from getting it from the factory ready through and making sure that on the other side there's an advert which drives the customer to your factory or to your point of sale. It all lines up. Have all aspects relating to establishing effective communication and overcoming all the recognized barriers been fully considered? So, in addition to the marketer being responsible for line of sight, focusing the organization on the customer, the other role that a marketer plays in an organization is to look at communication, not necessarily inter-organizational communication, but a marketer would address that as, but the communication between the organization and the client and all those other stakeholders that would have an opinion on the product or service that you're selling and therefore influence the client. The marketer needs to look at that, understand that, and make sure that all the barriers to effective communication have been dealt with and addressed so that the customer buys your product or service. 2 to go. Has consumer behavior theory been thought about and applied in developing the marketing program? The point of this, point behind this point is that there is a science, certainly there's a science to consumer behavior, and so you need to make sure that your marketer understands the science and has brought that science into the marketing mix. And the last question, but I think probably one of the most important out of the 13 that I've mentioned, is your marketing program socially just? Is it environmentally sustainable, and is it ethically sound? Marketers are professionals, and it's important that you meet the requirements and the challenges of the society that we serve. So before we close, I want to strongly suggest you undertake these 3 activities in the very near future. First activity that I urge you to do is to take a piece of paper and write the 5 psychographic and the 5 demographic indicators that you believe would be perfect of your client. It's a way of allowing you to focus on who is our ideal client that we want to have and we want to serve as our organization. It also gets you to think more clearly what is psychographic and what is demographic, and allows you to get a deeper understanding and think through this thing called marketing. The next activity that I urge you to do is, again, on a piece of paper, write down what is the essence or the promise of your organization's brand. Why do you exist? That's the question you need to ask. When somebody sees this brand, sees this logo, because ultimately it starts off with a logo, what do you want the customer to think about? What is the experience? What is the thing they would say when they saw your brand? So write down what you want the essence of your organization's brand to be. Third thing I think you should do sooner rather than later is list your organization's top 3 strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Once you've written those down, surely the next step would be to say, how do we capitalize on the strengths? How do we work on our weaknesses? How do we take advantage of the opportunities? And then how do we counter the threats? Having done these 3 activities, I hope that you'll start to see the value of building the marketing process into your business, and you'll be able to really start to use marketing to the value, to the level and to the value that marketing can be to an organization. I want to thank you for listening. My intention was to give you a very wide overview of marketing, to get you excited about marketing, and to make sure that you have enough insight into marketing to be able to get the best out of marketing that you need for your organization. I wish you fun marketing,